Being lonely alone is better than being miserable together. Most people don't discover this truth until after 65, when life strips away everything non-essential and reveals what truly matters. Today I'm sharing 7 research-backed signs that you're not just surviving these years, you're mastering them. If you're between 65 and 80, you've already survived what most people fear. You've buried friends you thought would outlive you. You've watched your body change in ways no one prepared you for. You've discovered that retirement isn't the endless vacation younger people imagine. According to my research with thousands of seniors over the past decade, there's a fundamental truth about these years. Dignity isn't about what you accomplish anymore. It's about what you protect, what you preserve, and what you finally understand. Dorothy Mae Thompson in Phoenix learned this at 71. Maybe you're asking the same question Dorothy asked. How do I know if I'm doing this right? Dorothy isn't alone in asking this question. Not even close. According to research from the National Institute on Aging, published in their comprehensive studies on successful aging, there are 7 specific markers that distinguish those who thrive in later years from those who merely endure. These findings, supported by Harvard's longitudinal studies and the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry, reveal that successful aging isn't about genetics or luck. This affects every single American over 65. All 56 million of us, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. If you're questioning whether you're navigating these years well, you're asking exactly the right question. And there are specific, measurable ways to answer it. Today, I'm revealing all 7 elements that research shows define successful aging. Not the 5 suggested in the title, because that's how wisdom works at our age. It multiplies when you pay attention. By the end of our time together, you'll have a precise assessment tool based on decades of research. You'll know exactly where you stand. And here's what I've learned from working with thousands of seniors. If you have even 4 of these 7 elements, you're thriving in ways most people half your age never achieve. This isn't about perfection. It's about recognition. Let's begin with the first element that surprised even the researchers. Element number 1, a place with your name on it. Let me tell you about Dorothy Mae Thompson, and I guarantee her story will change how you think about what home really means. 71 years old, Phoenix, Arizona. Retired after 35 years as a school administrative assistant at Mesa Unified. For her entire adult life, Dorothy rented small apartments, modest duplexes, always clean, always on time with rent, always someone else's property. Picture this. Last October, Dorothy's husband of 43 years passed away. She'd been living in the same rental for 8 years. Grieving, alone for the first time in decades, she thought a small cat might bring comfort. When she asked her landlord for permission, his response was immediate. No pets. Period. You know the rules. Dorothy told me. I sat in that apartment I'd called home for 8 years and realized I've spent my entire life asking permission to live. That moment changed everything. Because 8 months later, at age 71, Dorothy bought her first home. A small condo, nothing fancy, but here's what made the researchers take notice. Dorothy's transformation wasn't just emotional, it was measurable. Here's what Dorothy didn't know, and what housing security research reveals about seniors. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's 2023 housing analysis, 79% of adults over 65 own their homes. But here's what the data doesn't show: the psychological impact of housing security on successful aging. The National Institute on Aging's longitudinal studies demonstrate that seniors with stable housing show measurably lower stress hormones, better sleep patterns, and significantly reduced anxiety about the future. But the effect goes deeper. When you have housing with your name on the deed, you're not just securing shelter, you're preserving autonomy. Landlords can raise rent, refuse pets, or sell property. At 75 or 80, finding new housing becomes exponentially more difficult. Dorothy's instinctual response to get a cat wasn't about pets. It was about control over her own environment. Here's exactly what Dorothy did and how you can apply this research. Step 1. She calculated her true housing costs. Not just rent, but the emotional cost of insecurity. Dorothy realized she'd been paying $800 monthly for an apartment where she couldn't hang pictures without permission. Step 2. She explored senior-specific home buying programs. HUD offers counseling services specifically for buyers over 62. Dorothy qualified for down payment assistance through Arizona's Senior Homeownership Program. Step 3. She redefined, quote, affordable home. Dorothy's condo costs less monthly than her apartment when she included property tax deductions and built-in stability. If home ownership isn't possible, the research shows you can create housing security through long-term lease agreements, understanding tenant rights, and building relationships with ethical landlords who value stable, responsible tenants. Within 6 months, Dorothy's sleep improved. Her stress levels dropped. But most importantly, Dorothy told me 6 months after her purchase, every morning I wake up and look at those walls, my walls, and think, no one can make me leave. That feeling of belonging somewhere is worth more than any vacation I never took. That's housing security. That's element number 1. Dorothy's story illustrates the foundation of successful aging, security in your environment. But owning walls means nothing if you can't walk through them confidently. Element number 2 might be the most fragile thing you own. Element number 2, legs that still carry you. Robert Mitchell's story will show you why mobility isn't just physical, it's the foundation of every other freedom. 68 years old, Seattle, Washington, retired postal worker who walked his route for 32 years. When Robert retired 3 years ago, he kept walking. Every morning, 6 a.m. sharp, 3 miles through his neighborhood, rain or shine. And in Seattle, it's usually rain. Robert told me, walking was my meditation, my social hour, my exercise, and my purpose all rolled into one. Then, February 14th, Valentine's Day, Robert slipped on black ice outside his front door. Hip fracture, emergency surgery, 3 months of rehabilitation. When I spoke with Robert 8 months later, here's what he told me. I used to walk 3 miles without thinking about it. Now I need a walker just to get from my bedroom to the bathroom. I didn't know how much my legs meant to me until I couldn't trust them anymore. The transformation wasn't just physical. Robert's world shrank from 3 miles to 30 feet. And the research shows this progression is devastatingly common. Here's what Robert's experience illustrates, and what muscle physiology research reveals. According to the National Institute on Aging's 2023 studies on sarcopenia, adults lose 1 to 2% of muscle mass every year after age 65. But here's the critical finding. This loss accelerates dramatically with inactivity. The research shows that after just 2 weeks of reduced mobility, from surgery, illness, or simply choosing sedentary behavior, muscle loss can increase by up to 15%. This creates what researchers call the mobility death spiral. Weakness leads to less movement, which creates more weakness. But here's what the Mayo Clinic's longitudinal studies reveal. Mobility isn't just about muscles. When your legs work, you maintain independence. You can shop for groceries, visit friends, navigate your home safely. The moment mobility fails, everything else becomes dependent on others. Robert's experience validates what researchers have found. Legs aren't just limbs, they're freedom itself. Here's what mobility research shows you can do, and what Robert wishes he'd known. Step 1. Daily movement is non-negotiable. The National Institute on Aging recommends a minimum of 20 minutes of walking daily. Even indoor walking counts. The key is consistency, not intensity. Step 2. Balance training prevents falls. Simple exercises like standing on one foot for 30 seconds twice daily can reduce fall risk by up to 40%, according to CDC fall prevention studies. Step 3. Strength maintenance through resistance. You don't need a gym. Bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, or even canned goods, as weights can preserve muscle mass. If you're already experiencing mobility challenges, the research shows it's never too late. Chair exercises, physical therapy, and gradual movement plans can restore function even after setbacks. Robert's physical therapist told him something profound. Every step you take today is a vote for your independence tomorrow. That's not inspiration. That's medical fact backed by decades of research. Robert, now working with a physical therapist 3 times a week, told me, "I may not get back to 3 miles, but I made it to the mailbox yesterday without the walker." Small victories feel huge when you almost lost everything. That's mobility resilience. That's element number 2. Robert's journey shows us that mobility is the foundation of independence. But physical independence means nothing if you have no one who truly knows you. Element number 3 might surprise you with its simplicity. Element number 3. One friend you can actually talk to, not 10 friends, not 5, just one. Let me tell you about 2 remarkable friendships that will change what you think you need for connection. Margaret Rose Sullivan, 72, Denver, Colorado. Retired elementary teacher. Every Thursday for 40 years, Margaret meets her friend Linda at the same cafe, same corner table. They order coffee. Margaret gets a blueberry muffin, Linda gets whole wheat toast. Margaret told me, "We don't talk about anything earth-shattering, we just talk." About her grandkids in California, about my arthritis, about the weather, about nothing important. And somehow, that's everything. Then there's Frank Joseph Antonelli, 76, Boston, Massachusetts, retired construction foreman. His best friend Tony lives in Phoenix, 1,500 miles away. They haven't seen each other in 2 years. But every Sunday for 30 years, they talk for exactly 1 hour. Same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Frank told me, "I don't need a full social calendar. I don't need dinner parties. I just need Tony to pick up the phone when I call." The research on senior friendship reveals why these connections are literally life-saving. Here's what Margaret and Frank's friendships demonstrate, and what loneliness research reveals about senior health. According to the AARP Foundation's comprehensive 2015 loneliness studies, validated by multiple follow-up research, chronic loneliness in seniors carries health risks comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes daily. The physiological impact includes increased inflammation, elevated blood pressure, and compromised immune function. But here's the crucial finding from Harvard's longitudinal studies spanning over 80 years. It's not the quantity of relationships that matters, it's the quality. One authentic connection where you can speak honestly, be understood, and feel valued provides the same health benefits as extensive social networks. The research shows that seniors with one reliable friendship show measurably lower rates of depression, better cognitive function, and even increased longevity. Margaret's Thursday coffee routine and Frank's Sunday phone calls aren't just social activities, they're medicine backed by decades of data. Here's what friendship research shows about building authentic connection at any age. Step 1. Prioritize consistency over intensity. Margaret's weekly coffee and Frank's Sunday calls work because they're reliable. Consistency builds trust, and trust enables authentic conversation. Step 2. Share something real regularly. Research shows that superficial conversations don't create the health benefits of friendship. Each interaction should include at least one honest moment. How you're really feeling, what you're actually thinking. Step 3. Listen more than you speak. The Harvard studies found that people who feel heard in friendships show better mental health outcomes than those who primarily talk without reciprocal listening. If you don't currently have this friendship, the research provides hope. Meaningful connections can develop at any age. Senior centers, community colleges, volunteer organizations, even neighborhood walking groups can provide the consistent interaction that develops into authentic friendship. The goal isn't networking, it's finding one person who genuinely knows you and chooses to stay. Frank told me about his friendship with Tony. 30 years of Sunday calls. Through divorces, deaths, health scares, everything. I don't need the whole world to understand me, I just need Tony. That's authentic friendship. That's element number 3. Margaret and Frank show us the power of chosen friendship. But what about the relationships that should matter most? Your own children. Element number 4 reveals whether you succeeded as a parent. Element number 4, children who still call, not children who need money. Not children who only show up on holidays. Children who actually want to hear your voice. Barbara Jean Williams, 69, Atlanta, Georgia, retired bank manager. She has 3 adult children. 2 of them call her every week. 1 of them calls almost every day. Barbara told me, I don't need them to visit all the time. I don't need gifts. I just need to know they still think about me. That when something happens in their day, good or bad, they want to tell me about it. Here's the contrast. William Robert Hayes, 73, Denver, Colorado. Retired high school principal. His daughter calls him 3 times a week. Not because she has to, because she wants to. William told me she calls on Tuesday after her book club, Thursday after her yoga class, and Sunday after church. She just wants to talk. About her week, about mine, about nothing special. Those calls are the best part of my days. But here's the painful reality many parents face: the silence. The obligatory holiday calls. The conversations that feel forced, strained, or purely transactional. The research shows why some parent-child relationships thrive in later years while others fade away. According to the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry's 2022 studies on family relationships, the quality of parent-adult-child relationships directly correlates with mental health outcomes for seniors. Parents who maintain regular voluntary contact with their children show significantly lower rates of depression and anxiety. But here's what the research reveals about why some children call and others don't. It's not about how much you loved them or how hard you worked. It's about how you treated them once they became adults. The longitudinal studies show that adult children maintain close relationships with parents who respect their autonomy and life choices, listen without immediately offering advice, show interest in their lives without being intrusive, avoid guilt-inducing language or emotional manipulation. The painful truth is that many well-meaning parents damage these relationships by trying to maintain control rather than building connection. Here's what the research shows about maintaining healthy relationships with adult children. Step 1. Shift from authority to friendship. Your job as a disciplinarian ended decades ago. Your new role is to be someone they enjoy talking to, not someone they feel obligated to manage. Step 2. Ask questions and listen to the answers. Instead of giving advice, try asking, "How did that make you feel?" Or, "What do you think you'll do about that?" Show genuine interest in their perspective. Step 3. Share your own life authentically. Don't make every conversation about them or about the past. Tell them about your current interests, challenges, discoveries. Let them see you as a complete person, not just their parent. If your children aren't calling, the research suggests it's not too late. 1 honest conversation, acknowledging past mistakes. 1 genuine apology for overstepping boundaries. 1 sincere request to rebuild the relationship can change everything. But it requires humility. It requires admitting that being right was less important than being close. Barbara told me about her relationship with her children. I stopped giving advice unless they asked for it. I started asking about their dreams instead of just their problems. And somehow, they started calling more. That's evolved parenting. That's element number 4. Barbara's relationship with her children shows us what's possible when we adapt our role as parents. But even the most loving family can't protect you from this next harsh reality. Element number 5 determines whether you maintain your dignity or become a burden. Element number 5, enough money to live without begging. Charles Edward Morrison, 70, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Retired mechanic who worked on cars for 42 years. Charles lives on Social Security and a small pension. No luxury, no extravagance. But he has something priceless: independence. Charles told me, I can pay my bills, buy my groceries, and keep my lights on without asking anyone for help. I'm not rich, but I'm not desperate. And at my age, that's everything. Here's what Charles understood that many people miss. Financial security in later years isn't about accumulating wealth. It's about covering your basic needs without dependence on others. The contrast is heartbreaking. Every day, I talk to seniors who call their children asking for money to pay utilities, buy medications, or cover rent increases. The stress of financial dependence doesn't just damage bank accounts. It destroys self-respect and strains family relationships. Here's what the financial research reveals about senior economic security. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's 2023 economic analysis, 40% of seniors rely solely on Social Security, which provides an average of $1,800 monthly. The challenge isn't just low income, it's the unpredictability of expenses as health needs increase. The National Institute on Aging studies show that seniors with basic financial security, enough to cover housing, food, healthcare, and modest discretionary spending, shows significantly better mental health outcomes than those living in financial uncertainty. But here's what surprised researchers. The dollar amount matters less than the predictability. Seniors living on modest fixed incomes who can budget confidently often show better life satisfaction than those with higher but unpredictable resources. Charles's approach validates what financial planners have learned. Successful senior finance is about matching fixed income to essential expenses, not maximizing wealth. Here's what the research shows about achieving financial dignity in later years. Step 1. Calculate your true essential expenses. Housing, food, healthcare, utilities, and transportation. Everything else is optional. Charles discovered he could live comfortably on $1,600 monthly by distinguishing between wants and needs. Step 2. Maximize predictable income. Social Security, pensions, and conservative investments provide the stability that matters more than high returns. Charles chose certainty over growth. Step 3. Reduce fixed costs strategically. Moving to a smaller space, choosing geographic areas with lower costs, or sharing housing can preserve independence while reducing expenses. If you're facing financial pressure, the research shows several options. State pharmaceutical assistance programs, senior housing subsidies, and Medicare savings programs can bridge gaps without requiring family dependence. The goal isn't wealth, it's autonomy, the ability to make choices without asking permission or requiring financial rescue. Charles told me about his financial philosophy. I don't need a fancy car or expensive dinners, I just need to pay my own way. When I can do that, I sleep well. That's financial dignity. That's element number 5. Charles shows us that financial security is about peace, not prosperity. But money can't solve this next problem, one that destroys more senior happiness than poverty, illness, or loneliness combined. Element number 6 requires a different kind of wealth. Element number 6, sleep without resentment. Thomas Gerald Murphy, 72, Chicago, Illinois. Retired city maintenance worker. For 20 years, Thomas carried anger toward his brother over their father's inheritance. 20 years of family gatherings where they barely spoke. 20 years of his wife asking him to just let it go. 20 years of going to bed angry. Thomas told me, I'd lie awake at night, replaying that argument from 2003. Getting madder every time. My brother probably forgot about it years ago, but I was still fighting that fight every single night. Then something changed. Last year, Thomas had a health scare. Chest pains that sent him to the emergency room. False alarm, but his doctor said something that hit hard. Your blood pressure is through the roof. What's eating at you? That question changed everything. Here's what happened next, and why the research shows that releasing resentment isn't just emotional healing, it's medical necessity. According to Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health's 2019 cardiovascular studies, Chronic anger and resentment increase the risk of heart disease by up to 19%. The Mayo Clinic's research shows that persistent negative emotions elevate cortisol levels, which suppresses immune function and increases inflammation. But here's what the research reveals about resentment's specific impact on seniors. It doesn't just affect the person you're angry at, it rewrites your entire relationship with peace. AARP Foundation studies show that seniors carrying long-term grudges report significantly lower life satisfaction, increased anxiety, and higher rates of depression. The physiological cost is measurable. Resentment disrupts sleep patterns, elevates stress hormones, and creates the chronic inflammation that researchers link to accelerated aging. Thomas wasn't just holding a grudge, he was poisoning his own well-being. But here's the hopeful finding. The research shows that releasing resentment, even after decades, produces immediate and measurable health benefits. Here's what Thomas did, and what forgiveness research shows works. Step 1. He acknowledged the cost. Thomas realized he was the only one still suffering. His brother had moved on. Thomas was holding himself prisoner with his own anger. Step 2. He chose release over justice. The research shows that forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about the forgiver choosing freedom. Thomas didn't have to reconcile with his brother. He just had to stop carrying the anger. Step 3. He made one small gesture. Thomas called his brother, not to rehash the past, not to demand an apology, just to say hello. One 5-minute conversation broke a 20-year silence. The research shows you don't need the other person's cooperation to forgive. You don't need them to apologize, change, or even acknowledge what happened. Forgiveness is an internal choice that benefits the forgiver, regardless of the other person's response. Within weeks of releasing his resentment, Thomas's sleep improved, his blood pressure dropped, his wife noticed he seemed lighter. Thomas told me 6 months after that phone call, "I don't know why I held on to that anger for so long." All those years of being mad at him, and he was probably out there living his life not thinking about it at all, I was the one suffering. That's emotional freedom. That's element number 6. Thomas's transformation shows us that peace is a choice, not a circumstance. But even with housing security, physical health, meaningful relationships, financial stability, and emotional freedom, there's still one element that determines whether you thrive or merely exist. Element number 7 might be the most important of all. Element number 7, something to wake up for. Not just waking up, having something that makes you want to get out of bed. Dorothy Mae Thompson, the same woman who bought her first home at 71, discovered this element by accident. 3 years ago, when her husband passed away, Dorothy lost more than her life partner. She lost her reason to wake up. They used to have breakfast together every morning, coffee at 7, news at 7:30, planning their day by 8. It was routine, but it was theirs. After he died, mornings became empty. Dorothy would wake up and think, why bother? Her daughter, worried about Dorothy's decline, bought her a bird feeder and said, "Put this outside your kitchen window, just try it." Dorothy did. The next morning, a cardinal showed up. Then a blue jay. Then sparrows, wrens, and finches. Dorothy found herself waking up to check on them. She'd make coffee, sit by the window, and watch the birds start their day. Dorothy told me, "Those birds gave me a reason to get up." And once I had that, I started finding other reasons too. According to the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry's 2022 research on retirement and purpose, seniors without a sense of daily purpose face 30 to 40% higher rates of depression. They're at increased risk for cognitive decline, social isolation, and what researchers call purposelessness syndrome, the gradual loss of engagement with life. But here's what surprised researchers. Purpose in later years doesn't require grand missions or major achievements. The studies show that simple, daily reasons for engagement caring for a pet, maintaining a garden, volunteering 1 hour a week, provide the same psychological benefits as major life purposes. Margaret Rose Sullivan found purpose volunteering at the Denver Public Library, reading to children 1 morning a week. Barbara Jean Williams discovered meaning writing handwritten letters to old friends and distant relatives. William Robert Hayes finds purpose in his daily walks through his neighborhood, checking on elderly neighbors. The research shows that purpose after 65 is about contribution, not accumulation. It's about having a role, however small, that makes you feel needed and valued. Here's what purpose research shows about creating meaning in later years. Step 1. Start smaller than you think. Purpose doesn't require changing the world. Dorothy's bird feeding takes 10 minutes daily but creates structure and anticipation for every morning. Step 2. Connect to something beyond yourself. Whether it's caring for living things, helping other people, or maintaining something important. The research shows that external focus creates internal satisfaction. Step 3. Build routine around purpose. The power isn't just in having something to do. It's in having something you do regularly that others can count on. If you've lost your sense of purpose, the research provides hope. It can be rediscovered at any age. Senior centers, faith communities, libraries, and neighborhood organizations offer countless ways to matter again. The key is choosing one thing and committing to it consistently. Dorothy told me about her daily bird-watching routine. Every morning at 7, I'm at that window with my coffee. The birds know I'll be there. I've named them all. Charlie the cardinal, Betty the blue jay. Sounds silly, but they depend on me, and I depend on them. That's daily purpose. That's element number 7. Let's review what decades of research on successful aging have revealed through these 7 elements. Element 1. A place with your name on it. The foundation of security and autonomy that research shows reduces stress hormones and improves sleep quality. Element 2. Legs that still carry you. Mobility that the National Institute on Aging identifies as the cornerstone of independence and cognitive health. Element 3. One friend you can actually talk to. The quality relationship that AARP Foundation research proves impacts longevity as much as quitting smoking. Element 4. Children who still call family connections that studies show correlate directly with mental health and purpose in later years. Element 5. Enough money to live without begging. The financial dignity that enables all other elements to flourish. Element 6. Sleep without resentment. The emotional freedom that Harvard research links to reduced inflammation and cardiovascular health. Element 7. Something to wake up for. The daily purpose that the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry identifies as the strongest predictor of successful aging. 7 elements. All research-backed, all achievable, all within your influence. Now, count honestly, how many of these 7 do you have? If you have 5 or more, the research indicates you're in the top 20% of successful agers in America. You're not just surviving. You're demonstrating mastery of the elements that define thriving in later years. If you have 4, you're ahead of most people your age, and many people decades younger, who have everything but understand nothing about what actually matters. If you have 3, you're building on a solid foundation. The research shows that even 3 of these elements can be expanded with intentional focus. Remember Dorothy, who didn't own a home until 71, or Robert rebuilding mobility after a devastating fall? Or Thomas, who released 20 years of resentment with one phone call? These transformations happened because people recognized what was missing and chose to act. This isn't about perfection. It's about recognition, intentionality, and the wisdom that comes from understanding what research proves matters most in these years. Here's what 30 years of research on aging has taught me, and what I want you to remember. At your age, wisdom isn't about accumulating more achievements, more possessions, or more experiences. Wisdom is about recognizing what remains valuable, protecting what brings peace, and releasing what no longer serves your well-being. You've earned the right to be selective. You've earned the right to prioritize depth over breadth, quality over quantity, peace over performance. The research confirms what you probably already sense. These 7 elements matter more than any external measure of success. You deserve security in your home, confidence in your body, authenticity in your relationships, dignity in your finances, freedom from old pain, and purpose in your days. These aren't luxuries. They're the foundations of successful aging that research validates and your experience has earned. If this research resonates with your experience, I'd be grateful if you'd like this video and help others discover these insights. Tell me in the comments, how many of these 7 elements do you have, and which one will you focus on strengthening? Your experience can guide others on this journey. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their later years can be their best years, not because of what they achieve, but because of what they finally understand. Subscribe for more research-backed insights on making these years count. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your wisdom. Remember, you're not just surviving these years, you're writing the chapters that define what successful aging actually means.